I want to invite all our listeners to something we've been doing called the All About Pigeons Lounge. Every other Thursday, starting at 6 p.m. Utah time, we open up a casual Zoom hangout for pigeon people from all corners of the hobby rollers, racing, fancy breeds, or even if you're just getting started with pigeons. People have been joining from all over the country and around the world. We just sit back, relax, and talk pigeons. It feels a lot like standing around someone's loft or talking birds at a pigeon show. There's a ton of information that gets shared between fanciers. People bring up ideas, techniques, and little things they've tried in their own lofts that you might have never thought of before. It gives you new things to consider and try with your own setup. One of the really cool parts is seeing different parts of the hobby connect. Roller flyers, racing flyers, and fancy breeders all sharing ideas and experiences together. The lounge opens at 6 p.m. and usually goes for a few hours. You can stop in whenever you want, hang out for as long as you'd like, and head out whenever you're ready. You can find the Zoom link and the details on the All About Pigeons podcast Facebook page or at pigeonpod.com. We'd love to see you there. Welcome to the All About Pigeons podcast, brought to you by the All About Pigeons nonprofit organization, which is dedicated to promoting education and promotion of the pigeon hobby. Every week, a listener requests to drive our conversations about all things pigeons. Join me, Phillip Fry, as we learn and share stories about these incredible birds in this ancient hobby. Today, we're going to be talking about using AI in the pigeon hobby. We have with us Michael Shirley. He's the club secretary of the Nashville Pigeon Racing Club. So, Michael, thanks so much for coming on and talking with us.
Hey, thanks, Philip. I want you to know that I have listened to every episode of the All About Pigeons podcast, even the ones about the fancy pigeons and things that and rollers and all that. But I have just genuinely enjoyed every episode that you've published and appreciate you having me on as a guest. I hope that our conversation today is also valuable to other people out there.
Awesome. Thanks for saying that. I'm glad to hear a racer guy who appreciates all the episodes. There's always something to take from everything that we're doing here.
Yeah, and I've joined the Pigeon Lounge a couple of times now and got to meet other people from around the world, and that's really cool too. And they were understanding when my wife came into my office. I'm like, sorry guys, I gotta go. My wife needs something. They're like, you got to keep her happy if you want to keep the pigeons. So it's
Nice.
been good. I've enjoyed those contacts that we've made.
Nice. That's excellent, man. So club secretary, right? That's a very busy position to have in any type of pigeon club right there.
Well,
A lot of admin
yeah,
right there.
yeah. I just was elected, as you said. I'm a member of the Nashville Racing Pigeon Club, and it's been around since the 1940s, and
Okay.
it's a good, healthy club. And I am going to be learning quickly, I think, the duties of the secretary. Luckily, our previous secretary has agreed to guide me along the way as we need things. So.
That's good. It's always good to have the old guard kind of help you move
That's right.
into it as
So
well.
shout out to Sue Stady for sticking around and giving advice. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Nice. And is this the first time that I'm guessing, we're talking about it that the club has really kind of been using AI?
Yeah, so I'm definitely the first person to really bring it up as a member of the club and trying to show some of the folks how it could be beneficial for us. We have not used it for official club business yet, but I do have plans to make my, as you said, there's a lot to do, and I'm hoping that I can use AI to not only help our club move forward in a positive direction, but myself as a fairly new fancier help me with my record keeping and breeding even as we talk about potential races and race series. I used AI to help me with that. There is literally an infinite amount of ways you can use AI, at some for good and some for bad and some that's just for fun, and just trying to navigate how it can work into a club. I definitely don't want to force it on anybody, but when it comes to my responsibilities, I'm going to use whatever I can to make my life as manageable as possible.
So outside of the uses for the club, what are some of the ways that you've already used it for your own sake for the pigeon loft and breeding, like you're saying?
Yeah, so I'm a one-man show for the most part. My 13-year-old son helps me a lot in the pigeon loft, but sometimes, when it comes time for inventorying birds or making descriptions. So I'm trying to put together a list of birds that maybe have been given to me to help me with my when we first got started with breeding. I didn't have a very good list. I had everybody's band number and where I got them from, but I didn't have very good color descriptions or ages and things like that. So one of the very first ways that I used AI was basically did, for lack of a better word, or the best way to describe it is a conversation with my AI account. So I have a voice, like you can select the voice, and I selected the one that was the most cut and dry, get to the point thing. So it's not like, good morning, AI. I would like to help. I'm just like, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. This is how you're going to help me. And so anyway, I just hit start in the loft and I started catching birds and basking in them. And it's like, okay, this is my first bird and its band number is 2023 907. It's a white, splash, whatever, or it's a blue bar with white flights. And it'll read back to me that. And so at the end, I say generate an editable Excel sheet that has the the birds sorted by band, by year, number, description, and sex and or gender. And it did it took that whole conversation where I went through and inventoried all my birds, and it put together a great list that was accurate. And what that did was it sped up my process. Like I didn't have to catch a bird, find my pencil, write it down, and then go back later and enter all that into the computer. It just did it for me. And that saved me time. And that means that I had more time to do other things at my house, and my business and my work. So that was the first way I used AI.
Like you say, there's infinite ways that you can really play with this. That's pretty brilliant right there, though. And then now you have that. You have that list. You can pull it anytime
Yeah.
any issues come up. You can specifically tag it right to that bird. And that's a great record keeping. I think, we all talk about how we need to have good record keeping for all of our birds, whatever it is, breeding, vaccines, racing, any kind of competition that we're doing, really. And this is a great way.
I can go out in the breeder loft every day, and if I don't have, you know, I can pull out my phone and hit record or open up that chat. It remembers things. So if I find that conversation, I go right back to it. I'm like, oh my gosh, hey AI, Pigeon 971 is dead. Please update my records. And it can do that for me. And then, or if I'm out and about and make a memo or something and I want to be updated, I can use it that way. And then I can go into my database at home on my own time and update that. Like I use PigeonDB for generating pedigrees and stuff. And so um, I can open up ChatGPT and then use the conversation that I had with that chatbot to update my records for my record keeping. But you are right. The number one thing I hear people talk about is, well, you got to keep good records. I've heard it on your podcast a ton, like keep good records, keep good records, keep good records. And so I think that the most straightforward, easiest way to use AI for good and your pigeon operation is to use it for record keeping.
Yeah, yeah. So what about pedigrees? So you have another software that you're doing for pedigrees, or using the chat to assist, or
I haven't used the chat yet for that. I use PigeonDB. It is pretty inexpensive and it keeps up with everything. It's just a yes no program or yes if then program. It has a lot of shortcomings, but for the price, it does what I need it to do. My little brother works actually for Google, and I talk to him all the time. I'm like, hey man, can you help me create a new database, like a new record keeping app that would actually use chat, to make this happen? And we haven't done that yet, but if somebody out there is working on that, let me know. I would love to help or be a part of the funding of that because I think that there's a real business opportunity out there for someone to develop record keeping software that would use artificial intelligence to make it better. For example, the first disclaimer is all pedigrees they're only worth the information that you put on it, right? So I trust the records that I keep and make, but if I get a pedigree from somebody else, I'm trusting that it's accurate. There is no national registry like racing horses would have.
yeah.
So anyway, but what I can't do in my current database software is scan a pedigree that somebody get. Let's say I buy a bird. I can't scan that pedigree and take all the information off of that pedigree and automatically upload it to my pedigree so it shows up. I think that somebody could make it something where I could scan in that the AI software could read it, and then I could easily insert that into my database. But right now I don't know of any program that does that. I can, however, upload a pedigree to ChatGPT and ask it to glean information off of it, and look for patterns, or say, hey, give me the highlights that I can copy and paste into my pedigree. It can do that.
Maybe if you were using Gemini, your brother who works for Google would be more apt to help you if you
Right?
weren't
I
using
know. Yeah.
OpenAI.
So that's right. So that's a good point.
I'm the president of the Arizona Pigeon Club, and we use different versions of AI to help us with our club in the admin side. So what we do is we have executive officers meetings through Zoom, and we use the Zoom AI meeting summaries,
Yep.
which makes it, and we still have our secretary taking notes because there might be some things that might get missed and we just want to make sure. So the big things, that she'll still be kind of taking notes and stuff. But at the end of the meeting, it's instant. We have a summary of everything that we've said, and she can compare that to the notes that she's taken. We make sure that everything is covered, then we can send that out to everybody instantly.
I was just elected the secretary, so I have not officially been the secretary during a meeting where I was responsible for taking the notes, but I will guarantee you that I will be doing that as well. That's another use of AI. I'll just set my recorder out in the room, in the middle of the room, and I will, as you mentioned, continue to take paper records, minutes, and I will compare the two and use that. I'll just make edits to the AI one basically, so I don't have to retype it. Or I don't know. I find when I take minutes, it's easier for me to handwrite the minutes than it is to type. I'm not, so that's my plan as of right now for sure. I think that's another great use of AI again for record keeping.
Kind of like the grunt admin stuff,
Yeah, for sure.
it's really
Yeah,
good for that. I kind of look at this as, maybe people who listen to this like years down the road can look at this and laugh and be like, oh,
that's
these
right. They're
guys
like, oh my
all
God, these guys
all
didn't.
tripping about
Yeah,
AI, it's like
that's right.
because I mean, what were people talking about when the internet first came out? It was like,
Yep,
oh man, like how could
just
we
a
use this
fad.
for our pigeon
Yeah,
club and how can we,
right.
and all this different stuff, for our hobby and it's going to do this and that and it has its place.
It's the same thing for real-time uploads of races, right?
Yeah,
With real-time clocking. Some people are for it, some people are against it. Are either one of them wrong? In my opinion, no. They both come at it with their own perspective. And you and I talked before we started recording about some people, my daughter who's 15, she hates AI. She gets mad at me for using AI, right? Because she says about the environmental impact. And I'm like, well,
right.
yeah, that's true. I mean, but you don't seem to mind using your Instagram with a filter. That's AI. Like people are using AI whether they think they are or not. Um, I don't I don't mess around with it like just making silly pictures a lot because I am kind of mindful that there is an energy use. The data centers that they're putting in now are using recycled water, so they will get like
Right.
treated wastewater and use that for cooling. And a lot of the new plants that are being put in that are being built specifically for AI servers, they use geothermal technology, so that helps cut down on the environmental impact and things like that. So, you know, again, that's a whole nother podcast probably about whether you even think that AI should be used, but I'm going to assume for our conversation that everybody's at least open to the idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a big part of it. I mean, let's kind of talk about that then, because that is a feature to talk about. It's technology. Our Zoom conversation, there's going to be servers that are going to have to stay cool because we're having this conversation. People who are listening to
That's
the
right.
podcast, watching on YouTube, these are all going to be in these big server farms and they're going to have to stay cool. And you can look up and see which companies, and how much water you're really using, smartphones, bottled water,
Right.
all this stuff is going to be taken some sort of toll. There's a cost to convenience, and
That's right. Yep.
you're going to have to weigh it. At the same time, is it more efficient to go the old route, or is it actually more efficient to use AI?
I would say, me personally, the other thing about is growing the sport, right? So Is it more efficient? I would think that utilizing technology is more efficient. I also think that there's something to be said for finding younger people. That's when you're starting your families, you're having kids, when your kids get involved in stuff, like whether you're driving them around to sporting events or theater or whatever the case may be, you only have a limited amount of time. And so if we can find tools that make racing pigeons fun and not tedious, I think that that helps our efforts to grow the sport. And whether people like it or not, my generation, I'm Gen X and later. So anybody born from 1978 or so, like we are technologically savvy and we're using it. And if pigeon racing doesn't adopt it and use it, I think that that's going to do a disservice to attracting the next generation of fanciers.
And it's like you say, I mean, there's some aspects of pigeon racing where you guys don't really have a choice. You know, the benzene clocks and stuff like this, like you guys are kind of forced into that world anyway.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I joined the club, we weren't using benzene clocks at all, and I didn't have a clock, and so last year when I bought my first clock, I was like, I want a benzene because my son and I want to know when our birds get home, and we want real time results, and I work with a couple of school programs getting those set up, and benzene supported them with clocks and stations, like so those students, like the schools are racing against each other and they want to know right then. Like that's part of the excitement for them is watching it up on the screen about when birds are coming back. And that's getting them excited about the sport of pigeon racing. But there was a lot of, clocks are expensive and it's a big investment. And when I brought it up to our club, I was like, well, the AU says that we can't require people to use a certain clock, and I'm going to be buying a Benzing system because I want the smart hub and the Benzing Live data updates. And they were like, well, that's fine. You're going to have to figure it out. I'm like, okay, I'll figure it out. Like how do we merge all that? And it's been hard. Like we actually use ChatGPT to help us set up our clocks because we found it lacking on how to use some of the databases and eWin speed and all that kind of stuff, getting all the results merged together when you had multiple clocking systems. Another good use of AI.
With pigeon racing and, any kind of competitive, even in showing and rolling and things like this, there's so much just data, right? So in the admin side of things, like what would you say would be some good ways that you could use AI to coming in and helping out?
For my personal pigeon racing at our house about breeding decisions and things like that, I can upload our results not only from our races, but from our my training tosses. So as my birds come home and my clock spits out the data about the training tosses, I can upload that to AI to ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT right now, and it does analyze. AI works great for black and white things like numbers. You have to tell it what you're looking for. But sometimes I just ask, I'm like, hey, here are my results from my training tosses over the past month. Do you see any patterns or can you make any recommendations? And it has all of my breeders from last year and the results of the babies from last year. And so before I paired up all my birds this year, I talked to AI first and I'm like, hey, here's the breeders that I did. Here's the babies that they had, and here's all my results from the previous year's races and trainings. Can you see any patterns of pairs that did better? Like what was my best breeding pair? And it quickly told me my best breeding pair. And it told me the pairs which again, as you said, Philip, like I had all this information, right? But I would have had to sit down with it and try to figure it out versus just uploading that to the internet and then having it analyze that data for me. It saved me a tremendous amount of time. And I followed several of the breeding changes that it suggested, but not all of them because I was like, I like this pair of birds and I'm going to let them breed again this year and see if I get the same results or not. And I think that that's where, if you watch Moneyball, the movie Moneyball about the baseball team that was managed using statistics only, there was still they talked throughout the whole movie. There's still something that the data doesn't tell you, but the data doesn't lie either. So you just have to decide which of this data are you going to listen to and which are you not, and just going to go with your gut, and then own it. Like, hey, that was I did this based on my gut.
Yeah, because a lot of that, if it's literally just reading through reports, you would have came to the same result. It just saved you a ton of time. It
Correct.
it came there anyways on
That's
its own.
correct. Yeah.
The racing, especially with a club, I mean, you have a lot of different people coming in. That's a lot of information. So yeah, you want to get back to your life, get back to your loft, and move forward. And yeah,
Yep.
I get that. If AI can help you with that, then why
Yeah.
not?
With the race season this year, our club last year elected to combine our seasons, old bird, young bird. So we have a yearling old bird season. Um, but I was kind of sad. Like my son and I, this is our bonding time, like training birds and driving down the road. My daughter just turned 15, so now she wants driving time, right? Well, guess what? We're gonna go take the pigeons down the road. So this has turned into another way that I can spend time with my kids. And so I proposed that we have a sprint series this fall. And I asked ChatGPT to help me find out if anybody, I said, here's my idea. And I gave it the backstory, typed in the backstory of what was happening. And I said, please search the internet for any racing pigeon clubs that have a young bird sprint season for birds born in that calendar year. And it, searched the internet and couldn't find anything. Does that mean that nobody's out there doing it? Not necessarily. It just means it wasn't on the internet to be found. So it said, no, I haven't found this, but here's some examples of sprint series races, which are just, shorter tosses, 100 miles or whatever. And I said, well, then I proposed, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of 4 races on each cardinal direction around the center line of our club. And here are the GPS locations for my club members. Please generate release points that would make it so that everyone is equal distance over the course of the series. That all of our birds average the same amount of distance if they were released in the 4 cardinal directions. And it calculated that up in less than a minute and gave me the release points that if everybody in our club were to fly birds, and everyone is going to be the short guy sometimes and the long guy sometimes. And like the east and west, or like the north and the east release points, I'm like, that does not look very north and east. But just statistically speaking, it was the way to ensure that everyone's birds flew the same average distance over the course of the 4 races, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be very specific with your prompts to Chat GPT
Correct.
because it's very literal.
Yes.
I've learned that as well with some of my prompts we do it sometimes because you'll just kind of assume that it knows the pigeon world sometimes, and then it
Yeah.
just kicks back some stuff where you're like, oh wow, you have no idea
Yeah.
where I'm coming from with this, and
Yeah.
kind of have
Yeah.
to
And
restart
then
it.
I was like, how do I propose this to people that I said, pretend that you are totally opposed to this. Tell me my talking points so that I can convince you that it's a fair and a fun challenge. And it does that. So it'll analyze all the reasons why not to do it and tell you. And sometimes I'll be like, why is this a bad idea? Tell me why this is a bad idea. It'll spit out some things which I'm like, oh yeah, that actually really is a bad idea, and decide not to do it.
Yeah,
That's another way that I used AI, was like helping to come up with a map that I was able to show at our club meeting where I proposed this, to show them like, this is my idea and this is what it looks like visually. And here's my rough draft of what the rules might look like. And it came up with some really cool stuff, like for like novelty awards and stuff, which I
oh,
thought
okay.
was pretty cool. I don't remember any of those off the top of my head, but I could look it up while we're talking. But that was neat. I was like, oh, I'd never even thought about that. Like so it searches the internet, and like you said, if your prompts are good, it can result in really good data for you, or ideas for you.
There's a place for everything. You know, this is where my side of it, my opinion, is the one side of the pigeon world where I don't want to see any more AI is with these pictures of AI pigeons. Oh man, I'm so tired of seeing these AI
Yeah.
pigeons. And then, they
Right.
got zebra stripes on them, and everyone's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's beautiful, and it's like, come on,
Oh
people,
man, I'm an agriculture teacher
Mhm.
at the high school level, and it happens in ag too, where people post these AI generated flowers, and people are like, oh my gosh, where can I buy that? And I'm like, that is not real. Like
Yeah.
that is not real. That is not a real plant. So
Hmm.
um, it
Yeah.
can be for people that don't understand that it can be super confusing to come across AI images and not know the difference.
We use it for because Zoom has an AI feature, like I said, for the summary. And so we've been doing different things like that. We'll use Google Forms for some of our club membership. And then that can generate some really nice spreadsheets to kind of get a feel for, because the Arizona Pigeon Club is an all breeds club. The vice president is also the membership director, and he's done some really great work with that. And now we got a great picture to see what breeds we have in our club, how many people have these breeds. It gives you a better feel for what you have and what you're working with instead of kind of going in blind to a situation with an
Right.
idea that might not work with what you have. If it's admin stuff and you, like I said, if you get to that result anyway, and there's a tool, so if it's a tool that you can use that makes your life easier,
Yep.
why not? And the other question I have for you is this, right? So in the pigeon world, let's say that somebody doesn't want to use AI, but there's somebody who's all about using AI, like you're saying, for their breeding program, for their racing program, working it out. Would you say that that's a fair situation, or would you say that's like an unfair advantage, or just like anything else, just another tool that that person's
I think
using?
it's another tool. Yeah, I think it's another tool. What if somebody had a library of all the famous pigeon magazines, and they can access old advice that I can't because I don't have all those old archives. I just feel that the internet and AI is just another tool that people can use or not use. And I think this is important to say. It ain't always right. Like it's not
Right.
foolproof. And so you can still get bad information or misinformation when using AI. It just searches the internet for things that have been published, and some of them are not credible, and that can skew your results. So I would tell people like it's only as good as the information that you put in the prompt. And so I always say, when I'm talking about researching things, I'll tell you an example. I was interested in these pellets, the pigeon pellets, the green and gold from Missouri, and nobody in my club uses them, right? And I'm like, well, they're supposed to be a complete feed. Like that seems pretty easy. And so I got on ChatGPT because I wasn't finding anybody that had experience with them, at least not that would talk to me about it. And so I was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about using these pellets for my breeders and my race team. Like, tell me the good and the bad. Give me the pros and the cons of these things." And it did. It spit it out. And I'm like, "Okay, can you search the internet for any articles written about someone that's racing or training or breeding birds, just feeding this as the sole ration?" Again, it found an article and it linked it for me, and I read the article. I'm like, okay, that was interesting. But if I'm looking at pigeon nutrition, I personally, as a scientist, want to see peer-reviewed studies. Well, they don't exist. Like, there's nobody doing peer-reviewed studies on pigeon nutrition that I have been able to find in the racing world. It's just anecdotal. But ChatGPT can generate a list of articles and stories that are full of people's opinions on feeding racing pigeons or breeders. So anyway, I just think that that's another thing to keep in mind as you're considering the use of AI. You just have to decide like how is it going to work in for you personally. I just popped in my head another way that I used it this past week is training my birds, getting them ready for the race season. I wasn't at my desktop computer. I was actually driving down the road and I pulled over at the gas station to fuel up my truck. I had an idea of where I wanted to release my birds for a training toss, but I did have the GPS coordinates for our club's first release point, and I just opened up my phone and I said, "Here's my address for my house. Here's the release point for the first race. Generate a straight line map and tell me what is a good release point that's approximately 15 to 20 miles from my house along that line." And then ChatGPT did that and gave me a super easy place for me to pull off into a parking lot off of a main road. So again, it saved me time when I was training my birds because it gave me the easiest place to get to that was along the race route.
I have found, so when I first, it was Chat GPT that I kind of played with a little bit, and misinformation, especially with the free version, I kind of
Oh
feel like
gosh, yes.
they almost kind of make that one maybe purposely kind of dumb to
Yeah,
be like,
I think
hey,
you're right. Yeah.
get this paid version and we'll stop giving you wrong answers.
Yeah.
Um, because there was a huge difference, and I'll use it for the podcast and generating information for that as well too.
Yeah.
And it made a big difference from the free version, that's for sure. And I'm not like, sponsored by them or anything like that. That was just my
Right.
experience.
I agree too. It is a marked difference. And then I wanted to start using it for my office. And with the free version, you are granting them access to use all of your prompts and your
Mhm.
feedback and stuff. But with the paid version, it's more secure. And so I didn't want I went with the paid version to make it more secure. So I thought of another way that I used AI recently for the club is we have a summer meetup that's coming up. Know you helped us advertise that last year. I really appreciate it. And so this year, so last year I had an avian veterinarian that came and spoke. And at the end, I got mixed reviews about it. Again, it was like this guy's like one of only 136 board certified avian veterinarians in the world, and people were like, he's not, that's not even true. And I'm like, I think I'm going to go with his opinion versus yours, but whatever. So this year I thought I want to find something different. And I went to ChatGPT and I said, hey, I'm in charge of scheduling the speaker for our summer meeting. And I would like to find someone that's an expert on the use of homing pigeons in the military. And sure enough, it gave me a list of people that had written books or articles for museums and trade publications about military pigeons. And and it gave me their contact information. So then I reached out to I read the synopsis of the books that were published, and I identified one person. Turns out he's the curator for the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. He's in charge of the military exhibit. And so I reached out to him. He's written two books about or one book and one article or piece about, I think that's right, about military pigeons, and I invited him to come to our summer meeting, and I'm hoping that I'll get to announce that he is going to be our official speaker. But I thought that's super cool for a group of pigeon guys to get together and learn about the history of pigeons in the military, and
Nice.
a good way that I can again attract non-pigeon people out to our meeting to get them to hear some history stuff. But that was another way that I never would have found I mean, I won't say never. It would have been extremely hard for me to find the information that chatbot did in less than 10 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, it can give you a totally different perspective. Sometimes you get a real narrow focus on something and
Yeah.
it comes at it with that robot mind or whatever you want to call it and just hits all kinds of different angles. Let's kind of change gears a little bit and talk about
Okay.
because you guys do like you did a speaker last year. You're doing a speaker again this year. It's a different kind of a meeting that you don't typically see speakers at Racing Pigeon Club meetings like this. Can you kind of talk about how you guys are like you guys just got started too, right?
Yeah, and I won't claim responsibility for this. So, the Chattanooga last year, I saw an advertisement for the Chattanooga Racing Pigeon Club. They have a winter warm up, and theirs is actually coming up. I sent it to you on when you were asking about things that were going on. So we need to start plugging this for them. The winter warm up for the Chattanooga Racing Pigeon Club is on Saturday, March the 21st in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I went last year, and they had a guest speaker. It was just it was a gentleman that had ridden racing pigeons for many decades, and he just got up there and told some stories and gave some advice to people, some for new people and some for seasoned fanciers. And I thought it was really cool. And so I thought for our club, we wanted to do something similar, and we did. And so I kind of beat the bushes and found a guest speaker to come in and talk. And then we had our auction, and it was fun. Like pigeon people like to hang out and tell stories and stuff. And so this year, like I said, we're going to do it again. Ours, we call it the summer meetup. It's on Saturday, June the 6th in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and that's where we'll have it again this year. So if you're in the Southeast, there's two great opportunities for you to come and hear some guest speakers. There's going to be bird auctions at both of those as well. So the Chattanooga one is Saturday, March the 21st in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then for Nashville, ours is June the 6th, Saturday.
your background, I don't even see you got the nice soundproof and you got a plant back
Yeah.
there. Get the headphones. I got a tin back wall here. I mean,
Yeah, don't.
you got the professional setup
This
going
is
on.
literally, I bought these little these little foam things of people that are watching the podcast. I got them off Amazon. But if I move my camera just a little bit the other way, you'll see that it's just a regular room. This is just the corner of my office that I wanted to make it look a little bit nicer. My wife and I own a small animal and exotics veterinary hospital, and we created a podcast for our vet office called the Family Pet Podcast. And so, if anybody out there is we call it the podcast for curious pet parents. So, because we believe the more you know about pet healthcare, the better pet parent you can be. So, this is where I record those.
Okay, excellent. And then
Yeah.
can you tell our listeners where they can find you and your pigeons and your podcast and stuff?
Sure. And please, if any of you out there are using AI for your club or yourself personally, the reason this podcast started is I asked Philip if he was like it was an idea that I had for the podcast. It's like I wanted to learn from someone that was using AI, and nobody really responded to that. And so that's how this podcast came about. But if anybody out there is using AI, I would love to talk to you about how you're using it, so that I can make my use of it better. But you can follow us on all the social media channels. Our farm and our pigeon loft is at Burrowview Farm, and that's BOROVIEWFARM, and that's across all the social media platforms. So lots of things on TikTok. I follow some really great people on TikTok that are doing the racing pigeons and stuff, and YouTube especially as well. So follow along.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, thanks so much. I think this is a great topic, and like I said, it'll be something for the future generations to laugh at
To
when
look back. Okay.
when they
Well,
look back
first
at
off,
us.
they're going to laugh that we race pigeons, and second, that we were debating whether or not to use AI to help. Yeah, they're going to, yeah. So it's a I just I would love to. I personally am going to love looking back on this in a few years and seeing if the things that we talked about come to fruition, or if we've changed our opinion on the use of AI in the racing pigeon hobby.
Yeah. Hopefully, Skynet is merciful to us. So
That's right. That's right.
awesome. Thanks, Michael.
Hey, thank you. Keep up the great work, Philip.
I want to invite all our listeners to something we've been doing called the All About Pigeons Lounge. Every other Thursday, starting at 6 p.m. Utah time, we open up a casual Zoom hangout for pigeon people from all corners of the hobby: rollers, racing, fancy breeds, or even if you're just getting started with pigeons. People have been joining from all over the country and around the world. We just sit back, relax, and talk pigeons. It feels a lot like standing around someone's loft or talking birds at a pigeon show. There's a ton of information that gets shared between fanciers. People bring up ideas, techniques, and little things they've tried in their own lofts that you might have never thought of before. It gives you new things to consider and try with your own setup. One of the really cool parts is seeing different parts of the hobby connect. Roller flyers, racing flyers, and fancy breeders all sharing ideas and experiences together. The lounge opens at 6 p.m. and usually goes for a few hours. You can stop in whenever you want, hang out for as long as you'd like, and head out whenever you're ready. You can find the Zoom link and the details on the All About Pigeons podcast Facebook page or at pigeonpod.com. We'd love to see you there. Thank you for listening to another ad-free, listener-requested episode of the All About Pigeons podcast. If you like the show and want to help it keep it going, as well as supporting our other pigeon promotional work, head to the website pigeonpod, that's pigeonpod.com. You can make a donation there. If you can't make a donation today, support the show by giving us a good 5-star review wherever you're listening to us at right now. That really helps the podcast and helps the algorithm get us out there to other people who might not know about Pigeon Podcast. If you have any episode requests, upcoming pigeon shows, competition results, or you want to be a guest on the show and just talk about some pigeons, or you have a shout out for a friend, shoot us an email at staff@pigeonpod.com. Thanks again for listening. We really appreciate your support. And remember, together the hobby thrives. Support each other and enjoy your pigeons.